Hey everybody, Charles Szczepanek here. Welcome back to the channel and to Beyond the Notes, where today we are talking about a piece I wrote for felted piano called Contemplation No. 2. So your first question might be, what is a felted piano? It's not like that's a name or a term that's used a whole lot or used very widely. Even if you are a musician, it's not something that's super well known. So what it is a way of preparing the piano or doing something to the instrument to make it sound totally different than what it would normally sound like or what it would naturally sound like. In this case, we're sticking a piece of felt in between the hammers and the strings so that we get a totally different kind of timbre or color or sound. And what felt does is it really mutes the sound of the piano. It makes it much warmer, darker sound, less aggressive, right? It makes it really easy to play really softly. We have a lot of choice in really soft dynamics. It makes it almost impossible to play super loudly, so we don't get anything that's forte or aggressive or harsh. But there's still a range of dynamics. They just all happen to be kind of between really soft pianissimo and like maybe mezzo forte at the very loudest. So I have been writing music for felted piano for around 2 years, but this is super exciting because this is the first piece that I've actually recorded felted piano on a real instrument. I've been using a sample library, which has been great, called Noir. Noir was originally developed by Nils Frahm working with native instruments, and that's a whole story in itself because the whole reason I'm even writing felted piano today is because of the music of Nils Frahm that I started listening to about 2 or 3 years ago. So it all kind of ties together. This was an interesting piece to compose for me because it really didn't come all that easily. Despite it being only a very short 2-ish minute long piece of music, I hit my head against a wall a bunch of times over and over again. I think the first day I sat down to write music, I came up with the first 2 chords of the piece. And they were done a little bit differently than they turned out in the final version, but it was basically a G-sharp minor chord with some upper extensions, some crazier notes, and a C-sharp major chord, and they were alternating. Okay, so big deal, right? I had this idea, and I took some notes on the very first day that I worked on it, and I just wasn't going anywhere, so I put it away and came back to work on it another day. I came back a second day to work on it, and after an hour, all I could come up with was the first really 4 measures of melody. And I just thought, this is... At this point, with any piece of music, if I'm writing something and I've hit a wall 2 days in a row, or I've spent a lot of time and I feel like it's just not going anywhere, at least with the inspiration that's inside, I actually usually just trash the piece. I usually throw out the idea and I say it's either not time to work on this or it's just an idea that's not going to go anywhere. So a lot of times I just get rid of it and I never come back to it most of the time. This time was a little different. I felt like there was something special about the first 4 bars that I wrote, and I really liked them. So I came back a third day, and I gave myself a bunch of what I call compositional tools. So sometimes if I have like writer's block or something like that, I have what I call like my metaphorical bag of tools. And I think about those, and I think about, it's probably a couple dozen things. And I pull out a couple. And those couple things help give me a little bit of structure to work around, and they help guide me, especially if just the inspiration is failing in some way or another. So when I metaphorically looked in my bag and saw what I could use, 2 things especially stuck out. Mode mixture, and another was using chromatic harmony. So if you are a musician, that meant a lot to you. If you're not a musician, here's a very quick, like 10-second explanation. Mode mixture is when you take, let's just say like a major chord and a minor chord, and you flip the spots where they normally happen. Even if you're not a musician, you know the combinations of chords and harmonies that sound good because you listen to music. So all of that is built in our brains and our ears. So you don't have to have any knowledge to know what sounds good and what doesn't. Chromatic harmony changes work kind of the same way, where we're breaking rules. So we have rules about a bunch of chords that can normally be used in any particular kind of music. And chromatic harmony really pushes the boundaries, let's say, of those rules, where we are going very far away from a place that our ear seems to think is normal. but it still sounds good. So being able to use those two ideas, I went back to that main melody that I had and thought, well, okay, when I end this phrase, instead of ending it on a major chord, let's try a minor chord, mode mixture. And that worked, and I really liked it. And then I went into and I started writing a new phrase that got inspired by the change of mode. And then I thought, well, I could use this other chord, this chromatic chord, which ended up being just B major. I could just use that instead of the chord that would normally happen in the key. That sounded really good, and I liked that a lot. And it was just having a little bit of that structure went so far in helping drive that inspiration back and bring it forward again, right? So then we get into kind of the middle section of the piece, and again, I kind of explore more chromatic harmony in a way. So I lead us away from like our musical home or where the key center is living, and I lead us away 3 times in different ways, and they never feel super foreign, but they keep pushing us in a little bit different direction, but they never sound bad. So it's just something unexpected, and then it's sequenced kind of down. So I think it all goes to show you that even when inspiration kind of fails and there's not a lot just sparking immediately, there are still ways to make some beautiful music happen. And there's still ways to create that spark again, at least for me. So I love reaching into that tool bag, seeing what I can pull out. I try not to unless like I really have a lack of inspiration. But in those cases where that happens, it really fuels a whole new perspective for me. So all that being said, I think it's kind of cool the way the piece turned out, because I think it's still really emotionally evocative, even though it didn't necessarily stem from a place like that. I love playing it, and I feel like I can tell such a great story, or I can put somebody in such a great, maybe meditative place or contemplative place. It's called a contemplation, right? So I still feel like I can accomplish those things as a musician and as a performer, which is really the intention of music. And it's interesting that I was able to get there using really logic and rules more than anything else. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Stick around on the channel. If you like felted piano music, I'm going to be doing a special video on exactly what that means, kind of an in-depth video on what felting, especially a grand piano, is all about. So stick around the channel for that. Be sure and like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications when new videos come out. And get active in the comments. Let me know what you liked about this. Let me know if you want to hear about some other things, other pieces of music of mine, other things I've written. And until next time, I'll see you later.